The Bangladeshis have returned to their homeland, while the Indians are now in our midst, and the cricket caravan for the summer of 2022 in the West Indies continues. A full dose of white ball action after the test series against Bangladesh. And now we go to Trinidad for the ODI series, West Indies hosting India. We know the West Indies coming off a humiliating 3-0 thrashing by the Bangladeshis, and the Indians have come. They haven't brought the key international stars, but they have brought a group of young, hungry aspirants, and one can expect them to give no quarter to the West Indies. So this evening, we will be discussing, first of all, looking back at the Bangladesh series, and then of course, we look forward to the ODI segment of the India tour. We have with us, one regular in Omar Phillips. We have former co-host and now returning as a guest, Ayana Holder, and a very special welcome to a first time appearance by Mr. Robin Forde. Good evening to each and everyone. And
good evening to you.
Right. So we are going to start by looking back at Bangladesh, lady and gentlemen. And I'll start with the lady, primarily because she has been the one on the spot there in person throughout the series so far, starting in Antigua as it moved through to St. Lucia, through to Dominica, Guyana, and now in Trinidad and Tobago. But we're going to go back to Guyana, Ayana, and ask you one of the major talking points in the coming out of that ODI series, West Indies and Bangladesh. What was the conditions, the state of the pitch? We had captain of the West Indies, Nicholas Puran, complaining that the pitch did his team no favors. And even the Bangladeshi captain, Tamim Iqbal, he actually thought that there was definitely too much help for the spinners. But Ayana, as I said, you were there on the spot in Guyana. What was the condition? What was the conditions like?
Hi, good evening to everyone. And I can tell you that every day that we spent in Guyana, 13 days we spent in Guyana, the rain fell. We actually landed in the rain in Guyana when we got there. And that is one of the reasons why the conditions were the way that they were. The ground staff ability to really carry out their preparation was hampered. Even up until the first ODI match, the Bangladesh team hadn't really gotten a training session because of the weather. And that really contributed to the conditions that we saw in Guyana. And although the conditions were challenging, I think that the quality of cricket was still pretty low. And obviously, I think that something probably would need to be put in place when things like that occur. You know, the women had played in Guyana a week or two before, and they were also hampered by the weather as well. So probably something to look at in terms of scheduling. But I guess we will get to the actual cricket itself. But the conditions were definitely hampered by the weather conditions in the country.
Outside of the weather, though, is there anything that the authorities, those responsible for the preparation, could have done better, in your opinion?
Honestly, probably up until the final match, we actually got some sunshine, and I was a little disappointed in that that final pitch, because I thought that though there was rain, like mostly early in the morning, I still thought that during the daytime when there was sunshine, there probably was a chance to, put some water in the pitch and roll it and stuff like that. Because what I saw is that sometimes when the spinners pitch the ball, you see some parts of the pitch, some of the fragments of the pitch flying as well when the ball pitch in certain areas. And I don't think that that's something that you really would want to see at the international level.
Well, Omar, you are the only one among us who has played at that international level, and the conditions you hear described by Ayana. How do you respond to having to perform in what apparently seem very adverse batting conditions?
Yeah, good night to all the viewers panel. What you can say, we've seen this time and time again in the Caribbean. I think it's something that we got to get accustomed to. We're playing at home, regardless of the conditions. If you watch back the Sri Lankan series, ball turned the same way. And it's a matter of you knowing your home conditions. I think preparation was key in terms of that, the type of pitch that was prepared. Ayana mentioned it there just now about the ball actually hitting and creating a bit of erosion. And in an ODI game, I think it's not the ideal condition for when you want to see a proper ODI cricket game. So I think that played a major part in the low scores that you're seeing in the game.
Well, Robin, you would have seen both teams operate in the conditions. True that, as it turned out, the West Indies were forced to bat first in each of the 3 matches. But what was your general opinion of the competencies of the 2 teams, basically, particularly West Indies?
Well, good night to all and welcome back. I would like to say that while I agree with what both persons before me have said, once you're playing cricket, you have to be able to master and counter the conditions that are given to you. A toss is something, some you win, some you lose. I would say that there was an application by our batsmen. I don't know if anyone here remembers seeing the first ODI in which Seals and Phillip batted. I think they batted for quite a while in the same conditions with the ball turning. What they did that the other batsmen seemed to fail to have done was to play straight. They did not play across the line. A lot of our batsmen got out hitting across the line and not waiting until the ball come to them. I think these 2 gentlemen, 2 bowlers by the way, they just took their time and batted with a straight bat. The same thing with Kemo Paul. When you watch him, how he batted, he took his time. I think our guys just did not take their time. Further in the discussion, I would like to get to the composition of the team. I think we didn't have the right combination going into the matches, all 3 ODIs. But I would say that our batsmen just did not take their time and apply themselves. That was my impression in watching all 3 games.
Robin, Ayana alluded to the better the better adapting to the conditions of the lower order for the West Indies. And then it was said, I'm listening to the commentary in particular, it was said that the pitch got easier as the game went on. Could that have been a factor, the fact that by the time the lower order came, the pitch was playing a lot better? And did it play, was the change that drastic?
Yes. At the beginning of the game, there is still a bit of moisture in the pitch, from the sweating of the covers and the early morning rain. However, as Robin said, some of the shot selection was pretty poor as well. And you need some of your top order, middle order batters to really dig in to see the innings through until the end. And unfortunately, for example, Lachey Hope, he really did not he didn't even score a half century in the innings in the series. And that would be a great concern for West Indies because he's generally the anchor for our batting. And later on in the innings, when the pitch started to dry out a bit, the bowlers were not getting as much assistance. You saw the lower order putting up a battle. And obviously, if you had the middle top order, applying themselves a bit more, West Indies could have done a bit better. The first match, they batted 41 overs. The second match, they batted 35. And the third game, they made it to 48.4. So it's a bit of a roller coaster for the batters in that series.
Again, I come back to you, Omar. We've talked a lot about the West Indies batting, but the bowling side of things didn't get much better for the West Indies. They didn't, I think, necessarily apply any great deal of degree of pressure onto the Bangladeshi batting lineup. Although, I mean, how do you defend 108 in an international game? So your thoughts, though, on how the West Indies bowlers went?
I think we're always up against it when you make such a low total, and a good start at the top always set the platform for the bowlers. I think that when we watched the start, we weren't consistent. If you look at the lengths and the lines that the Bangladeshis bowl, it was a lot better than ours. We were too wayward. We gave them a lot of scoring shots, so it was hard to control the innings, especially with our spin at the top, Yad Hussain, who went for 43 runs, which when we saw how difficult it was for our batters to get the spin away, it just goes to show that we weren't bowling the ball in the right channels and putting them under pressure to score. We just probably understand trying to attack too much or whatever the case may be. I think that was one of the things that probably fell in the Bangladesh team's hand. So in terms of as mentioned before, the makeup of a team, probably when you look around and see Poran bowling 7 overs, speaks a lot.
Robin, that was your baby. You mentioned that you wanted to get into the aspect of the combinations that the West Indies chose. You care to expand for us now?
Yeah, certainly. I've said repeatedly that I think the composition of the team was wrong. First of all, we should have had at least 2 other spinners in. I'm amazed that Walsh didn't play. And I've said from the beginning, you cannot pick an ODI team from a West Indies point of view and do not have a Roston Chase. Chase would have given us the option. I've seen Chase bowl personally, and he still is a very, very good spinner. And I think he would have made a big improvement in the composition of the team. And as well, he could have batted and helped us with his scoring. And he bat spin well. So I'm still amazed that he's not even mentioned in the 15 that has been chosen by the selectors. That's my personal opinion. But I think that we just had our composition all wrong. And I mean, from the first ODI, I spotted it. And sad to say, the selectors didn't make any changes. But I felt that the team wasn't selected properly with the conditions that they played into. That was my position.
Interestingly, Omar, the Bangladeshis went for 4 spinners in the final match. Do you think that West Indies got the balance wrong as far as reading the conditions and what might have been best for the operation in those conditions?
Yeah, it's always a case when we play against sides like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India. We always think that pace is the key to go against them. And I think having watched the 2 games previously, in the third ODI, we should have gone with a different lineup. To see them continue the same way, I don't know if they're trying players to see what they're going to do for the Indian series, but I think that we should have learned from at least the first ODI, not just the second going into the third. I think the first one we should have realized we're playing in Guyana, and we've been playing in Guyana longer than Bangladesh has. So we should know the conditions a lot better. It is no secret about it. Never seen a series that pace bowling actually win a game for you in Guyana. Never. If you look at Guyana in first class cricket, they go to Guyana, one pacer, all the rest bowling spin. So I think we didn't read the conditions. We didn't check back the history. And I said, in your own backyard, so you should know better than the outside team.
Well, Ayana, another one of the discussion points surrounded the relatively new West Indies white ball captain having an outing as officially known as the appointed West Indies captain and playing at home for the first time. How did he acquit himself, Puran, especially in manipulating the bowlers when West Indies fielding?
I think that Puran utilized the resources that he had pretty well. He had targets of around 150, 108, and 180 to defend. And although there weren't a lot of runs to get, you could still see that he was trying to make changes in the field to try to make things happen. The bowlers probably didn't execute as well as he would have liked them to. As a batsman, I think that he, other than the sweep shot that he played when he got out for a duck, I think in the third game, he really applied himself and took the responsibility, knowing that he has to stick around and score some runs. And he can only get better with time. I really hope that they can get the composition of the team right so that he doesn't have to be bowling many overs. I think the spell he bowled against the Netherlands probably is, a once in a lifetime one, but I don't think that we should really persist with that if it comes down to a case where he has to bowl 2 overs or so. If players become injured, fine, but I don't think that he should be really a part of the bowling plan. That shows a weakness in the side. And I was a little disappointed that Hayden Walsh was not retained for the ODI series. Luckily against India, he is a reserve, but I think that Gudakesh Motie was really a bright spark in the series. Aki Hossain was a bit below par, but he really has been well over the last year and a half. So I don't think one bad series can hurt.
And I'm going to ask the other two panelists to just give their cricket impressions of Puran, the captain. Robin, you first.
Okay. As what person would have done, I was probably a harsh critic of Puran as a captain because I thought that a number of things he should have batted a little better in the first 2 innings. The second one, I couldn't understand the shot he played at all. But having said that, I think, as Ayana said, he captained the team not too badly with the runs that he had to play with. But again, I think someone probably spoke to him, and the third innings, he really took his time. As you can see, once you take your time and get in, you will score runs because a bad ball has to come along. But the Bangladeshis wasn't giving us many bad balls, so you had to really take your time and bat. And I was impressed in the end with how he came through. So I am willing to give him another chance against the Indians to see exactly how he comes through this series.
Omar?
Yeah, I don't really have a major problem with his captaincy. I think he used the resources that were given to him or that he selected. In terms of maturing, he can only get better. He's still young. We got to remember he's still a young man learning the trade. So I think when looking back at the times I saw him captain before he was actually handed the official captaincy, he did some fantastic things that you would want to see in a captain. The only thing he needs to learn now is that he can settle down and play a different role as a captain, dig deeper and be more hungry, because he's the type of player that once he is in at the wicket, he can score. There's no doubt about it. But I think how he adapted in the third ODI and settled down is how he should approach most of his innings.
Moving on to Trinidad, Ayana, you are again there on the ground. You did mention about the amount of rain you encountered in Guyana. What have the weather conditions been like in TNT?
Again, very tropical, a bit of rain, a bit of sunshine, but things at Queen's Park Oval looks pretty good. We just only hope that the rain can stay away and we can have some lovely cricket. I know that we are in the hurricane season and there's always going to be moisture in the air. So we're just going to hope for the best. I expect Queen's Park Oval to give better conditions and really aid for good cricket, good quality cricket against this India side.
I heard the coach earlier this evening talk about the fact that they have been able to get in some work, have been able to get in some practice. Can you give testament to that?
Yes, they had two good days of practice here so far. And I think that will really give the guys, a boost of confidence coming out, probably got over the low of Bangladesh and brushed that off, are really looking forward to opening a new chapter here in Trinidad against India. We must mention that Jason Holder returns to the squad. And I think that he himself said it in the media that he's really looking to raise his hand and be accountable and perform. And honestly, I think that him, the all-rounder, not only bowling or batting, but I think the value he brings as an all-rounder will strengthen the team, especially with the bat, and he will also complement the other youngsters with the ball. I'm looking forward to seeing him in action.
Robin, the selectors have made minimal changes. Ayana mentioned Jason Holder coming in to the squad. They named the 13-man squad with relegating Romario Shepherd to the reserves and opting to drop Anderson Phillip all together. You mentioned earlier that you were not satisfied with the combinations chosen in the previous series. What are your thoughts, though, on what the selectors have come up with?
Well, looking at it, it's not a bad squad. I don't know why they're going with 13 and 2 reserves. I think they should have gone with 15, but because they're playing at home. But anyway, I would have liked to seen a Roston Chase in there to give me some options. But I think with Jason coming in, it would definitely help the team. One of the things I saw Jason recently, and his batting is very well. I had a chat with him and I spoke to him about his bowling. I think he still needs to do a bit of work with his bowling. He's a top international player, and with a couple of days in the nets and so forth, I expect him to perform very well against the Indians. So,
sorry.
My full backing.
Omar, the selectors, again, we refer to the fact that the minimal change made to the squad coming out of the Bangladesh series. Is this just maybe a sign that this group of selectors are prepared to give the players something of a run rather than to choose the option of chopping and changing at the earliest stage?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it before, and in the when we was on the show before talking about the test series, about giving people a chance to prove themselves, and the only could get better with having more game time and giving them the comfort to perform and not feel like every day is your last. And we're seeing that in the last, I said, in test series where I was talking about previous series where Pramal and the likes of Cornwall and all them the spinners didn't get a chance to really perform. I'm happy to see that Motie has been given that chance to prove himself again. In terms of Jason coming back, it's fantastic that he's back in the squad, not just because of his all-round ability. The leadership and the spirit he brings to that team is a different type of spirit compared to what you see, or what we saw in that last series, especially in the ODIs. He's just like two men in terms of the support, and he has the experience. He's always thinking ahead, and that would be good for young Puran to work with him as well, because he was a previous captain. He knows the ins and outs, so it's good to look forward to. Obviously, with a stand-up player, not stand-up, but a player who caught my eye, and I always had liked him from playing for Stars Gates, and his Casey Carty. He looked very, very comfortable and compact, and I always wanted to see him playing at that level. I was happy to actually sit and watch him. It's very unfortunate the way he got out, but I think he's one that we could look forward to seeing.
How about the utilization of the batting resources? We saw Kyle Mears, for instance, opening the batting early before he suffered an unfortunate injury and had to miss the last game. Brandon King from the middle order up to the top of the order. Any thoughts on how we may be able to utilize the batting resources anyway differently to the way things went in the previous series? That was for you, Omar.
Yeah, with the likes of Brandon King's side and Shamar batting that tree, it's always going to be difficult with Shea Holt. We know who would be the regular with ball opener. Kalmir's coming up to the top, who would complement. He would complement Shea. But then you still have a Brandon King who's also opener. So I think, like, for me, Brooks, we tried Brooks at the top as well. So for me, the spin would be putting Brandon King to go with Brooks. Not with Brooks, at three-way Brookses, and let Brooks probably come down, because he's also a good player spin as well. I'm not too sure of the where the power will back. If we send him, it all depends on the situation for me. But that area between 3 and 4, and when you look at it, as Robin mentioned, a Roston Chase will be the ideal man to slot in with that in that middle order to bring a difference. Because if you look at, we got players there who are similar. He would bring a difference, and he could also back the spin when it comes on that middle arc. We know India and those type of teams bring a lot of spin.
Well, Ayana, I know you have to leave us. You have a pressing engagement in a few minutes. So I'm going to just ask you to for one brief final comment. What do you see as the prospects for this series, the one-day segment of the series for the West Indies?
Well, I believe that West Indies will be looking to, put a better showing in the ODI format, batting 50 overs, setting themselves targets to 50 plus, individual batters getting half century and centuries. Wins will be a bonus, but I think based on the recent performances, at least batting those 50 overs will be very key. And the bowling will generally take care of itself. This India team has some future stars as well as the known veterans, Dhawan, etc. So I think it will be a good challenge, and the West Indian fans in Trinidad and across the Caribbean can expect some good cricket.
Thank you very much, Ayana. As I said, we know that you have to go. I will stay with the others for a few more minutes as we head towards a wrap. Once again, thank you, and continue to enjoy your stint in touring around with the West Indies team, living the dream, I would like to say.
Yes, cheers, thanks. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so good night to Ayana, and back to the gentlemen. Both of you, I would probably put the same question to you. What do you see as the prospects for West Indies going into this series? Robin, first of all, you as for you.
Well, it's going to be a tough series. I'm not going to. I would like to see the West Indies play well and bat the 50 overs, but it's not going to be easy. Although the big stars are not coming, they have some. I've been following these Indian players in the IPL. Guys like Hardik Pandya. He is a very good. He was actually the player of the series in England. He's a very good all-rounder. bowls well and bats very well. He's a middle order bat. We have Rohit Sharma at the top. And of course, you cannot forget Rishabh Pant. He is a very, very dangerous batting prospect. He's the wicket keeper and he bats very quickly. And I think this Indian team is going to perform very well. It's up to the West Indians to do the right things. Keep the ball in the right areas, take their time and try to bat the 50 overs. I heard Ayana say try to get to 50. In this ODI setup, you have to try to look at 300. 300 is going to be a par score. I have heard persons said that when you go to a ground, you always look to the par score. But at Queen's Park Oval, we got to try to get close to 300 and then try to defend it. So I think that we are in for 3 exciting ODIs, but they're going to be tough. It's not going to be something that we can just walk over. India now coming from a 2-1 win over England, and England, as you know, was once rated the ODI #1 team in the world. So this is not going to be easy. Granted, they're not bringing their three of their stars, but one thing I can tell you about this Indian team, once a player gets a chance to represent India, they're going to go there and play their best, give it their best shot. So this is not going to be a rollover for the West Indies, but I'm hoping that once we can perform and with the support of the home support in Trinidad, we should at least turn up and give a good account of ourselves.
Well, Ayana has left us, but her seat has been taken by none other than Philip Hackett. I don't think who needs no introduction whatsoever to this show. And I'm sure that he has been following the discussion. And before he even get to Omar, I would ask Philip what if he has any thoughts to add along the lines of what he, given what he has heard so far.
Well, first of all, I can't replace Ayana. So
but I didn't say you replaced her. I said you have stepped into her the seat.
Okay. Well, I guess I could live with that. Good to see Ayana back on the show and living her dream, as you pointed out. I'm sure she's the envy of many,
including me.
And I think it's good to, from many aspects, from her point of view, proud dad. But it's another plus as far as I'm concerned. Just another plus for women's cricket, if you will, because you don't expect really to see girls or females doing something just out of the blue. Most of them will need to see other females doing it. And I mean, if you look at the scoring situation, how the female scores have actually taken over domestic cricket, and they had to start with one, you know, so that's good for her. But to get back to your question, yeah, I've been listening very closely, and I think good to hear Ayana's views because she was actually there. And while we would have been watching on television, sometimes when you're actually there, you can feel a different type of pulse that you don't get across the you know, the areas, so to speak. But I like what I'm hearing from you guys. You're very analytical and so on. Robin is on. I think Robin is very fair, and this is not to suggest that you and Omar are not. But most people who call for someone's head, I get emotional about it, and you know, lose focus and lose common sense quite often. Robin, I thought maybe somewhat prematurely, because sometimes it's good to wait until the series is over, but called for the removal of Pooran. And you know, I think it's very fair of him to reconsider. He hasn't said, okay, I'm over the moon and I'm happy with Pooran, but at least he's willing to give him a look in for the next year. I think that's very fair. And the other thing that Robin said that I agree with, and I really don't understand why more people don't see it. Ross and Chase, we've got a critic called Ross and Chase, and we are treating him like I don't know. It's ridiculous. I personally think there's more to it than cricket. I believe that it makes me worry for cricket, because you see, when these things happen to players who are not popular, and when I say popular, this is not to suggest that Ross and Chase is disliked by people, but he's probably not the life of the party type of guy. And when people are not popular and others don't come out and cry foul when they see something wrong being done to them, then when their player, the player they like, gets a raw deal down the road, they're surprised. But my theory then, and it always has been, that if people can do rubbish and get away with it, they will do more and more rubbish. And right now, sorry to say, but the selectors doing rubbish, and they're probably doing a little bit more rubbish than the last set of selectors. I'll leave it at that for now, because if I warm up anymore, you may overheat.
Well, yes, and we can't afford that. The set can't afford that. We may burn up the set. Yeah, Philip. But well, of course, you know that I know how you feel about that particular matter, and it has nothing to do with first. About the matter, the
but it
principle
matter
of the
because
matter.
it is not a matter of Rustin Chase being one of my favorite players. That has nothing to do with it. Wrong is wrong, no matter who wrong is being done to. And it's not even about Rustin Chase. It is about getting West Indies cricket back where we would like it to be. And how can we do that if we keep doing these sort of unfair things to players? Do you think that cricketers in the Caribbean are stupid? Do you think because they have not come out and said anything that they don't see when wrong is being done? And then we wonder why they go and play for the IPL and why they're not available to play for the West Indies. They're not stupid. Their eyes are very, very wide open.
Right, Omar. Let's take a look at the Indians, though. Just seeing that they are the opposition, and we've concentrated quite heavily on West Indies, and rightfully so too, I think. But are you disappointed, first of all, that you won't be seeing the likes of a Virat Kohli and Jasprit Bumrah, but particular? There's also Yuzvendra Chahal, who is not going to be making the trip. Mohammad Shami, I am disappointed that he's not coming. He is one of my favorite Indian players, Mohammad Shami, and great admirer of his bowling. And then, unfortunately, KL Rahul is still recovering from some surgery. And another one of those players who I would have loved to have seen adorn the grounds of the Caribbean.
Yeah, for sure. I know Virat Kohli. I know a lot of fans probably will be disappointed, especially playing in Trinidad where their culture probably is strong. Looking at the lineups, missing a Chahal, you still got other guys that would fill in for him. The one I wanted to see was Shami. I wanted to see him personally in Caribbean. I know he has a very, very good bowling style for me. Happy to watch him play. But for me, Kohli missing this series is a major plus for the West Indies. It's a plus for the West Indies because he's a man at the moment hungry to get back in form. And I think for the Indians, it will be disappointing because to me, most players find form against West Indies. It's just sad to say, but I think this would have been a tour for him to get back on track. And I know as a player, you always got a side that brings you back to the top 8 table. And looking at the Indian side, to be honest, I don't think there's a weekend side. When I hear people saying this is a weekend side, all these players perform at a high level. If you check the stats, all of them probably out doing the West Indies players by a long shot. So it's not a matter of coming and walking over. And we all know when new players come in, they need to set a mark. So they're gonna try to prove themselves. We know how many cricketers India has to choose from. Not like our pool. Their pool is a lot bigger. So if he can't swim, you may be in the water.
Don't go in the water. Robin, any of these Indian players though that you are particularly excited about seeing or disappointed about not seeing or not coming to the Caribbean?
Yes, for sure. I've seen Virat Kohli in England personally, yes, and I've always impressed with him. I'm anxiously looking forward to seeing Pant. Pant is a very exciting player, and I enjoy watching him bat. I also love Ravindra Jadeja. Very, very interesting player. He's a guy who would come at 7 and give you a century. And he bowls wicket and wicket, very tight bowler. And of course, Rohit Sharma, I would enjoy to seeing him. So those are my favorites. But the man that was going to make a big impact is Hardik Pandya. He really honed his skills playing in the IPL, and he fights with every ball he delivers, and he's a very difficult batsman to get with. So he's the guy I think is going to be really the one, the thorn in the West Indies side in these three ODIs.
Philip, once upon a time, there would have been a number of names in this side. A team coming out of India, you would always expect there would be those persons who are unknown to any great degree on the part of Caribbean fans. Nowadays, with the advent of the IPL in particular, none of these players that are coming here are really new to us as fans, but a few of them relatively new to the international scene. For the likes of Surya Kumar Yadav and Shreyas Iyer. These guys, Ishan Kishan, are relatively new. Deepak Huda, these guys relatively new to the international scene. But any of them that particularly catch your fancy that you particularly want to see or want to see perform?
I don't want to see any of them perform.
But just I talk about from a spectator's perspective, not as a West Indian fan, as a cricket lover.
Okay, as a cricket lover, I'm happy to see them perform when they're playing against other people. But I get your point. No, I tend to like leg spinners. They pique my curiosity a lot, so that should give some insight into where I'm going with that. But I really can't call. If I had to call a name, it would be Pant. I think he's a remarkable cricketer. The story of Pant really underlines where we are in West Indies cricket, because you've got a guy like Pant who has pushed Saha out of the Indian side, and Saha is a keeper that if we were trading players in cricket, we would probably be happy to trade Saha. We argue over Durrich, we argue over the incumbent, the silver, and so on. This man, Saha, with three centuries, is averaging close to 30. A pretty good performer, very good keeper in my estimation, but he can't get a look in anymore. Yes, he's 37, so I think his time is probably gone. And there are also other keepers. There's a guy who captains one of the teams in the IPL, and he opens the batting.
Sancho Samson, I think it is.
Samson, yes. So they have so many, an abundance of riches, and you can really envy the Indians. So it's hard for me to single out a player or players that I would like to see, because there's so many of them. But of those who we would be expecting to be a part of this, if Pant were to play a magical innings, that's something that any cricket lover would enjoy.
Well, Omar, I didn't get around to asking you about your thoughts on the prospects for West Indies in particular, or what do you anticipate coming out of this series?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, looking out this series to see Casey Carty actually setting the mark once given that opportunity. Last series we had with Brandon King, who started to find his way, played one of the most elegant innings I've seen from the young man. For us, in terms of the bowling, happy to see Jason Holder back in the lineup. In terms of Motie, I played against him a couple of times, and I think I'll call for him most times on the show, and happy to see that he has gotten the opportunity. But it would be a tough ask in this series, and only the ones that want to be counted will be counted.
Okay, and Philip, I give you the final word. What do you see coming out? How the West Indies, would you see West Indies coming out of this series?
Well, if I use logical reasoning, I suppose, I would probably get to a point where I would have to say that I'm not too optimistic that West Indies can come away from the series with a win, given the struggles against Bangladesh. But cricket is a game of various uncertainties. That's one thing. Two, the location is different, a different venue. But I think that this Indian side, even without some of the stars that we would like to see, is on paper still a stronger side and a more experienced side than the West Indies. So I think that West Indies would need to play to their best in the series to come away with a win in the series, or even to come away with a win in a match, would really have to play well. Or just one of those situations where India, has a horrible game. But I would have to say advantage India, but it's cricket we're talking about. We can't only look at the last series against Bangladesh and say, well, India is a stronger side, because the conditions are different. And Jason Hole is back. It's a player in those shortened formats especially can make a big difference in the game. So that's some hope for the West Indies. But I fear moving forward, they don't mean to be a prophet of doom. But until we remove, we're too small an entity in terms of the pool that we have to engage in the sort of politics that I see going on right now. And if we can get the best players, and this is a generalization now because we've already got the 13 or the 15 for this series, but when we can get our best players out in the middle, and all the quotas and all the politics and that sort of thing is put behind us, I think we can compete with anybody.
Well, we just have to look forward now and hope, first of all, that the weather is kind to us and that the players actually get onto the field to compete, and that that the conditions be a lot fairer than what we apparently encountered in the last leg of the summer series. And here's hoping the best for the West Indies. As West Indian fans, we would all like to see our West Indies do well, but of course, West Indies can only do well if they perform well. And we hope that it be a fair and even contest, and of course, with excitement galore. That basically wraps it up for us. Let me say special thanks once again to Robin Forde for joining us. First time, I hope it's not the last time that we'll be seeing you with our group.
I think Robin was actually on the show on one previous occasion, if I remember. Although, or I should say, a version of the show that may very well have been one of the segments where we were looking at the domestic competition, if I remember correctly.
Okay, yes, well, yes. Know that you've prompted my memory. Yeah, but this is the first time that
we've been on the full show.
We've been engaging in the full. So, Robin, thank you very much for your insightful comments. Omar, again, now who has become one of our regular experts, and notice that he's been having some good times on the other side of the fence, on the field itself.
Yes, pardon me, Wayne. Congratulations, Omar, on your century.
Thank you.
Local domestic level, and of course bringing.
I'm sure you're glad that Robin Forde was in the umpire. Who knows? He may have given you on one of those appeals.
I'm sure it would have been rightfully given to. I hold no qualms about that. If it were given, it would have been the right decision.
Fair enough.
Well done. But yes, Omar, thank you also very much. Thank you, Philip, and of course to our viewers and the many fans and followers of the show. Thank you once again, and we look forward to joining you in a later edition of Anything Cricket Let's Talk.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you.